It's the wonderful broadcaster and the documentary maker, Cherry Healey. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Lovely to see you.
Gosh, this is so fun.
Hey, do you sit on the big sofa?
So lovely. It's actually got the same colour walls as me, which is elegant.
Oh, really? This decor is like your decor?
Very much. I feel very at home.
Oh, that's so nice, because that's
Gorgeous.
exactly what this is meant to do. And meant to do is talk to us about Inside the Factory. It's wildly popular. People just are crazy for it. And I did ask you before the show, what was your favourite one of all time? And I'm starving ever since I asked that question. Tell us about the favourite one.
One of my favourite ones, it's like, which is my favourite child? I don't know. I love them all.
Yeah.
But I think my favourite one was, I love the Jaffa Cake Factory, because you're obviously not really supposed to take things off the line, but they had a special way of doing it where you could take the Jaffa Cake off the line at different phases. So you could take the spongy bit, when it's had the jammy bit, when it's got the chocolate on. I'm going to say, we should be putting our Jaffa Cakes in the oven. A hot Jaffa Cake, chef's kiss.
So it comes off the line hot?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Melty and hot, but and slightly jammy.
And I just still don't know how they manage not to melt the chocolate, how the chocolate is smooth, but also kind of undulating.
Well,
but
Vanessa,
also
you're going to have to watch the show,
Oh, my
OK? Because we
gosh.
give the secrets away there.
And I love the way that when they did the Quavers one, you had to call them potato curls because you couldn't use the brand name or something. Everyone was like, what's a potato curl? Oh, yeah, OK.
We have to do that all the time. Like, a chocolate tea time biscuit thing. Everyone's like, I know what that is. But obviously, integrity, journalism, it's really important. BBC show, really exciting, but you have to follow some rules.
And of course, you're doing it with the gorgeous Paddy McGuinness, and lots of people will think that literally he is drop-dead gorgeous, isn't he? He's very funny and he's also very handsome.
I really hoped that he would be funny, because if he wasn't, then that's a bit sad, isn't it? Because he's a comedian. But what I didn't realise was he's just a lovely human being. He's really lovely. So when I met him, I was doing lots of dating. So he was always excited to see, who have you been on a date with? What disaster has happened this time? He was so interested in my life and what's going on, and he chats to everyone on the team, and he's just a lovely person to chat with.
And of course, the papers took it one step further, as they often do. Step out with a human male and bam, you're definitely in love and an item. How do you deal with it when they do that sort of thing?
Well, it's interesting because I don't really Google myself because I'm quite a sensitive person. So I like to put a nice big bell jar over myself.
Yeah.
And, I know that there's sewers outside my house, but I don't stop and lick them.
No.
So I know
you don't go
that
paddling in the sewers,
right,
absolutely
exactly.
not.
I'm sure you've had experiences of like this many times.
Well, I've never been on X in my entire life because I just know I haven't got the constitution for it. I would be terribly upset if I read really, really hideous things about myself. I just would hate it.
If Susan hates my skirt, that's fine.
Yeah.
She's allowed to hate my skirt. I don't need to go searching for it. If you look for trouble, you'll find it. And I'm sensitive and I like to feel happy, so I don't look for it. However, this did blow up a little bit.
Yes.
And I have a boyfriend called Justin, he's amazing, and that was my only concern, was it's when it starts to affect other people, and I just think you need to deal with it quickly, contain it really fast. And there was
how do you deal with it? What do you do? Because it's like the cat's out of the bag. It's already out there.
Luckily, this was very, this didn't have any damage really, but I just think it's making sure that people, if they are affected, are reassured and that they absolutely know that there's no truth in it.
But you know that bit in Notting Hill where Julia Roberts plays the incredibly successful American actress and Hugh Grant's the bookseller with a shop in Notting Hill, and he tries to reassure her about the headlines by saying, oh, it'll be tomorrow's chip paper. And she says it won't.
Yes.
It will linger on in the cuttings, on Google, on Wikipedia, forever and ever. It will never go away. When they write something that's not true about you, there it is forever.
I think it slightly comes with the territory, and luckily, damage-wise, this was fairly low on the Richter scale.
Yeah.
But there are some things which are damaging to your career, damaging to your mental health. It does slightly come with the territory, but I think luckily this hasn't been too bad.
Yes.
How do you deal with it?
I find it very, very difficult. And when they write horrible things about me, and certainly there are, one of the problems about being sort of notorious or infamous or well-known or whatever it is anyone who knows you, if they're nasty and has an agenda, can flog a story about you.
Right.
So if you have, marauding exes around the place who might make a few quid selling stories about you, you never know when it's going to pop up, and you never know how horrible it's going to be. And then the real thing is, Do you say something like, that is not true, or shut it down? Because if you do, that directs so much more attention to it.
Exactly.
Or
It's
do you
really
try and
difficult.
rise above? It's quite difficult.
I had a lovely ex-boyfriend. I was with him for 6 years. He was the loveliest boyfriend you could ever wish for. We just wanted different things from life. But he was a really wonderful, wonderful man. I was very lucky to have a chapter with him. But I was talking to a journalist about something completely different, and I mentioned that I'd gone out on a date with this awful guy. I spoke to him for 2 hours. He didn't ask me a single question. He was the biggest narcissist ever. At the end of the day, he said, "Do you want another drink?" And I said, "I'll have another drink with you if you can tell me what I do for a job."
And he hadn't bothered to ask.
And he didn't know anything about
But
me.
both my daughters said that. They said they'd go out with a guy. They would be completely silent. The guy would talk about himself the whole evening. He wouldn't ask them a single question. And then, at the end of the evening, he would turn to them and say, "Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. What a fabulous
Best
evening.
date
I would
ever."
love to see you again." And they think,
And you know what their mother's tennis partner's dog walking cousin is called, and they don't know that you live in West London.
No.
So I was telling a journalist this as a joke.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, there was an article in a paper, and it was Cherry talks about narcissistic ex over the picture of my incredibly lovely ex-boyfriend. And I thought, that really hurt me, because we had ended on good terms and he was a really good man and I really loved him and I respected him. And that hurt me, because I thought, this journalist has just been really lazy and put the story that I've told in a kind of jovial, kind of chit-chatty way with another woman.
What you mean, yeah.
I felt that's been the only thing that I've actually really minded about, because I thought that was really unfair. We were just chatting. I can't even remember if we were just chatting.
Well, a lot of harm can be done, but I think people assume that, if you're in the public eye, you've sort of almost signed a pact.
Right.
You've said, well, I'm doing this
you?
deal with... Well,
But
not
maybe you
really.
have.
Well, have you?
You dance with the devil.
Do you feel as if you have?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, because on one hand, I think respect for human beings, kindness is how I run my life, but that's, I know, also not the way the world works. And I feel like maybe it is what happens.
I just hope people are just eating their Frosties. Other cereals are available and don't care less. I think they just think, what's that old nonsense? And ignore it. I don't think they take it to heart, remember it every single time they think about you.
And life
if
is
indeed they
short.
ever think about you, they're leading their own lives. They're much too busy. That's why I'm always so delighted when people phone the show, because I know everybody's got their own life. They don't have to be sit there waiting to phone and talk to me. So I'm just thrilled. I feel like my father's selling a pair of pyjamas. He's in the underwear business. And I think, they want to buy the pyjamas, great. They want to phone the show, great. And I'm really, really pleased. So
Totally.
You're a mum of two.
Yeah.
One girl, one boy. The girl's 15, the boy's 11. And we are going to be talking now about whether you feel that you have to sort of tailor the way you raise them because one's a boy and one's a girl, or whether these days we don't even do that kind of thing. We're all people and we bring up our kids the same. How are you tackling it?
I want to say that in an ideal world, no, we just bring them up the same, gender is equal. I'm bringing them up differently, because they are two individual people.
Yes.
I am bringing my daughter up according to how I feel like I'm in tune with her, and my son is differently. So is it the case of boy, girl? I don't know. Maybe it's just that it's my son and my daughter and they're just different people and they have different sensitivities, different ways of doing things. But I would say that I've talked to my daughter. This is right or wrong. I mean,
we just tell the truth, whatever it is.
Right. I kind of wish I'd done more research before I'd had the conversation.
Right.
But it was just a moment presented itself. And I talked to her a lot about consent. Because I think I grew up in the 90s. I mean, I didn't know what consent was.
I don't think we'd even heard about it, really.
Right? The idea that you don't have to kiss a boy if he wants to kiss you. What? Oh, hang on. Do I not need to be polite to men who are not nice to me? That was a revelation when I got to 20, and I don't want her to have to go through the same thing. So I've spoken to her a lot about it, because my daughter's very, very smart and headstrong. And she looked at me like, of course. What are you talking about? But I have done some research recently. I'm writing a book at the moment on women in safety, and it's an audio book and a book. And I'm doing lots of research, and I interviewed someone, and they said the way we should be educating our daughters and boys about sex and about relationships, we should start with the positive. But I went straight in with the negative. Right. I was like, this is what you should not do. But I didn't talk to her about the beauty and the love and the joy that comes from a healthy respectful relationship. I went straight in with the, don't you dare go to that party. You're not allowed. Over
My
my
mother
dead
used
body.
to phone the party in advance and say, Vanessa, this is Vanessa Feltz's mother. She's not allowed upstairs. And I felt like saying to my mum, don't you realise whatever I could do upstairs, I could also do downstairs?
You didn't say
And
that.
of course I didn't say it. But luckily I did know it. And what I really wanted to do was colossal amount of snogging. I always really, that's all I really wanted to do. Nothing much more terrible than that, but just a great deal of that. But I know that in talking to your boy, you did show him a film or a little video that was made by the Metropolitan Police. Is that right?
It's a video about consent that's age appropriate for, I think we need to start talking to children about relationships and sex at around 10, 11, 12,
Right.
according to the child. Children develop different.
We've got
and
a
this
clip of
video is
it so
great.
people get the idea. Have a look at this.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they go, oh my God, I would love a cup of tea, thank you. Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, hey, would you like a cup of tea? And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you can make them a cup of tea, or not, but be aware that they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important bit, don't make them drink it.
Well, that's pretty clear.
Don't you think that's kind of genius?
I think that's excellent.
And yes, of course, he doesn't really understand what I'm talking about in terms of it's an analogy, but that just is a note of respect about how to treat someone in general. And then later on, when he starts to date girls, then or whoever, I will have that as a basis, a foundation of this is conscious consent. This is what it means to be consciously
Absolutely.
consenting.
And just
it's
because
not
you
grey
want
area.
something, don't make an assumption.
Right.
Make the point of asking. I think
Absolutely.
that's perfectly
Isn't that
excellent.
brilliant
And I certainly
video?
wish that I had been treated like that.
Gosh.
By men and boys in my
I
life.
wish that someone had talked to me about
Me too.
consent, but our
Absolutely.
parents didn't know, and it wasn't a conversation. So of course, but I hope that our children and our children's children benefit from us understanding that as really, really important.
Well, calls are coming in thick and fast about this, about bringing girls up exactly the same as boys or differently, special conversations that you would tailor-make for a girl or for a boy. Whatever you feel, do get in touch and tell me about it. Let's go straight to Joe, who's on the line in Hertfordshire. Hello, Joe.
Hello.
Hello, Joe. Hi, good to have you on the programme. Tell me about bringing up girls and boys. Do you do it the same way or differently?
I try and do it the same because they both need to sort of function as adults. My job as a parent is to get them to be a functioning person in society.
Yes.
So my boys and my girls, it's like they will learn how to cook, clean, look after themselves, be able to get a job, that sort of stuff for themselves.
Yeah.
Yes, there are times where you may need to have different conversations with them because they're different. And with the things that their kids want to do, like the activities that they want to do, they may be different based on their own personalities, or it may be gender specific. We don't know. But on the whole, it is, I want my kids to be able to be a functioning person.
Absolutely.
And my kids.
Oh, we're having a look at them. We can see your kids. Oh, they're lovely. Look at them. Christmas Day or something. They look divine.
Oh, yes.
Oh, they're absolutely gorgeous. And so are they still too young to have those kind of serious consent type questions? And,
No.
No.
Because I've done this with, like, my youngest is 7. So whenever we do anything that, like, where we're playing around and messing around, and so as soon as anyone says no, that's it, it stops. So there's a different way of teaching consent for both boys and girls. So with the boys, it's like if somebody says to stop doing something, you stop. You don't go any further. But then with my daughter, it's then trying to empower her to say, no, I don't want this.
Right.
Oh, God, I think Joe sounds absolutely amazing. I agree. Like, when you get tickled by a relative or someone and someone says, no, I don't like that. I absolutely, and I can sometimes feel like a killjoy, but I'm like, she said no, stop it. Because I want my daughter to learn that it should be stopped when she says stop. It's only playful, but I think, unfortunately, it teaches this idea that it's just going to carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I come from the era where you had to go and kiss your grandma and your great-grandma and your great-uncle, whether you wanted to or not, and no one cared whether you wanted to or not.
Absolutely.
My grandchildren absolutely no way. And in fact, I would never demand a kiss from them, never.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky, I'm very grateful that they're very cuddly and they do want to kiss me, but I wouldn't impose and I wouldn't expect either, because I think their bodies are their own, and then it's up to them. If they
Absolutely.
want to give me a spontaneous kiss, it's all the more precious.
Right.
Because they chose to, you know, it's lovely.
It's teaching them the idea
Yeah.
that if they don't want to be physically interacting with someone, they don't have to. And that should cross every single kind of interaction, I think.
I think it's incredibly important, respecting them.
Jo
and
sounds
trying to
great, doesn't
Jo
she?
sounds
Yeah.
absolutely great. Thanks so much to Jo. Many more of your calls on this coming in right after the break. Do you think you should raise girls and boys differently? Maybe there are very different concerns, and you think when you have the birds and the bee talk, it's different for girls and different for boys. Right, let's get stuck into this one. Should you raise girls and boys differently? Get your calls in now. It's 0207 862 2222. And Kirsty Ketley, the parenting expert, is here.
Hello.
And you have one of each.
I do. I have a boy who's 8 and a girl who's nearly 12 next week.
And the thing I really love about you is you're not just a parenting expert and a parent. You also both used to be and still are a nanny.
Yes, that is right.
So you are
a couple of days a
intimately
week.
involved with other people's kids, your own
Yes.
kids and everything else.
Yes.
So tell me whether you do have a different approach to girls and boys.
I don't think it's necessarily as easy to say yes or no that you raise boys and girls differently. I think it's important to treat children just as the individuals they are without focusing on gender. But yes, certainly as children get older, obviously hormones come into play, maturity levels will vary. And yes, you might not treat them differently, but you might approach different scenarios differently.
Well, let's talk about how it
depending on boys
used
and
to be.
girls.
So it used to be that classic thing of big boys don't cry,
Yeah.
boys don't cry, man up, you're a boy, act like a man, be a boy, look after your sister and your mother, you know, that kind of thing, didn't it? Boys are boys and boys will be boys. So we're kind of a bit indulgent to them because boys will be boys, but at the same time, we require tremendous kind of discipline and control, but also we want them to be macho, we want them to sort of carry the heavy stuff and, you know, help their mum across the road, that kind of a thing. And girls must be ladylike and sweetly behaved and look pretty and you know, sit with their legs together, as my mother used to say to me, and don't whistle in the street and don't talk, you know, don't chew with your mouth open, and who'll marry you if you don't sit up straight and all that kind of thing. I mean, I'm not actually exaggerating. That's exactly what it used to be.
I've got 3 brothers. I'm one of 4. I've got 3 brothers. And there was, but I'm quite boisterous and loud, and I'm good at sport, and I like to chase anyone with a ball. And so but I remember knowing, oh, that's kind of not what a woman should be. We should be like quiet and elegant. And actually, you force a square peg into a round hole. It's not you can be a woman and be loud and boisterous and talk and be a leader and do all of these things. You can still be female and do that. So it's, like you say, you've kind of got to go with the individual.
Yeah.
But so feels like things have shifted.
So things have shifted, Kirsty, haven't
Definitely.
they?
And I think, you know, for me, I was a teenager growing up in the 90s. We had girl power. We had the Spice Girls coming out telling us exactly that, you know, that we can be strong, independent women, you know, but still be pretty and effeminate as well. So I think it's still carrying on, and you know, lots has changed since the 90s, definitely. And I definitely see it now in my work with children and with parents as well. And it's really interesting seeing it from dads and mums points of view as well, and seeing the shift in men already, you know, who are becoming fathers, how they are approaching the childcare aspect of raising a family. You know, there are more and more hands-on dads. You know, my own husband's a very hands-on dad, fantastic father, great role model. And that's what a lot of it's about. It's being a really good role model for your children, I
Let's
think.
bring in one of our viewers. Now, this is Manisha in London. She's been in touch, and through some miracle of technology, Manisha, you look fabulous. My gosh, were you just sitting around wearing that, looking like that? Or do you always look like that at home? My goodness.
Thank you so much. You're really kind. I'm a content creator and influencer, so dressing up is part of my life.
I
was
can
going to
see.
shoot some video.
God, you better come and sit on my pink sofa. You'll be a perfect adornment. Tell me about girls and boys and bringing them up, and whether you do it differently for boys and girls.
Sure. I'm a mummy of 2 boys. I've got a 15-year-old boy and a 7-year-old. My elder one is, yes, that's Ayan and Yovan. Ayan has just gone to Munich today. In fact, he's gone on a German exchange program. So what I suggest, again, like Kirsty said earlier, I encourage my boys to express emotions. So next year it will be his GCSE, and sometimes he gets really stressed and he's like just holding his head. I'm like, it's okay, you can share. And sometimes he wants to cry, and I have never said, oh, boys don't cry. You want to cry, you cry. You want to, I don't ever say like you should be put in a box, like, or if you want to wear pink, please wear pink. If my younger one, 7, whenever he sees me wearing fancy jewelry or he wants to try it on, I never say, oh, that's only for girls, you don't do that. So I think it's best to, again, what the guests were saying, individual. If they want to, so my son wanted to bake a cake. I said, yeah, sure, do it. Both the boys make their beds in the morning before they go to school. I have encouraged that from very early. They have separate baskets.
Wow.
Yes,
that is incredible. God, you had me at make their beds before school. That's so impressive. My goodness.
You have to do it. It's not perfect, but it's a habit, and they need to make the bed because that's not my job to go to their rooms and tidy it up. So they know that if the messy room is theirs, they will come back to the messy room. So they have like a small duster in their rooms. They tidy it up, both of them. In fact, if you want to chat with them later on, they will tell you what they do, how they keep their
On
rooms
another show, we better have a whole show devoted to you and those boys making their beds and everything else. Manish, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. I mean, I love that, the duster in the room. My goodness.
I love to hear that the domestic load is shared between boys and girls, so that there's not an expectation of she's a woman, she's a maid. Because that is just so destructive. We will need to bring up boys.
But if we wanted to strike a small note of realism here, if you've been watching Stacey and Joe, you know, Stacey Solomon and Joe Swash, that documentary, Stacey is constantly saying to the 2 older boys, right, Leighton, Zachary, you know, this is your chore, you know, and if you do this, you'll get money for a holiday. And they're like, nah, and they don't, and they have no truck with it at all. And it's lovely because you can see real disobedient children behaving like real children who are not angels and don't do everything they're told. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching it, gotta say. Let's talk to Amanda in Kent. Hi, Amanda. What's your take on this one?
Hi, Vanessa. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Tell me. You've decided to raise your boys and girls differently, have you?
I've got one of each, and just to remind you, I called you last week and I said this statement to my son: I am a woman first, before I become his mom.
Of course, you did. She's a woman before she's his mum.
Yes.
I love that. I thought that was great.
Yes.
Do you agree, Kirsty?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I've got one of each, and they're in their 30s. Yeah. And I think across cultures, sometimes unconsciously, we do that. We raise them differently without realizing, with different expectations and freedoms and maybe some emotional permissions and responsibilities. But for me, it's not about raising them the same, but for me, it was raising them to be equally valued, emotionally aware, and for them to be their authentic selves.
Exactly that.
Yes. Thank you very much, Amanda. But I just want to talk to Kirsty a bit about this. This idea of being your own authentic self. It sounds lovely. I would definitely wear it on a T-shirt. I'd have it embroidered on a tea towel as well. It's great. But when you're a child, how on earth are you supposed to know what your own authentic self is?
Well,
what does that even mean?
They're always developing and finding their identity, aren't they? And certainly by sort of age 7 and 8, they're already forming their sort of core beliefs, which is why it's really important as parents that we're positive role models and think about what our beliefs and values and things are, because it does rub off on your children, and that's where they're already making those decisions about how they're going to feel or think about things. And obviously by the time kids, you know, get to preteen, teenage age, they are experimenting with themselves. You know, you'll see the outfits that they can maybe come downstairs wearing, you know, the makeup, you know, and yeah, it's just going along with it and, you know, not telling them they can't do something based on their gender, particularly. Yeah. So, you know, my little boy used to like having his nails painted when he was younger. Incidentally stopped him from sucking his thumb. Very random. That random parenting tip there.
Excellent, yes.
But, you know, older generations would have challenged him, well, why are you having your nails painted? But it was absolutely acceptable, it's fine, you know, and you see plenty of boys these days going around, you know, and they've got their nails painted. So what? You know, it's fine. And I think it's, you know, it's really important, definitely, to let them be unapologetically, easy for me to say, themselves.
And the idea that boys aren't, obviously not all of them, I know that, but just generally because of the testosterone, because of the way they're built, the way they're made, more likely to punch things, kick things, get in a fight, want to do something physically aggressive than maybe girls. I don't mean all boys and all girls, but as a generality. So there's often more to sort of rein in with boys. Do you not find?
I feel like if you can get them to talk about their emotions by talking about your emotions, then at least there's an outlet. I think, actually, I would say that mine are kind of the other way. So my daughter's really sporty. She's not I would say not particularly really emotional. I mean, she's got emotions, but she doesn't cry at film. I cry at every film I watch. I cry at bank adverts. I get teased all the time at home. And I would say that my son is more emotional. So sometimes they don't even display the stereotypical
That's
way
the same
of
in our
being.
house, actually. Yeah. And I think, it's really important to allow that. But also with boys, or any child, whether it's your daughter or your son, if they do respond in a physical kind of way to things, let them have opportunities to burn that energy.
Run it off.
To run it off, Get down the pot, get them out on their bikes, shove them in the garden for a bit, get them to...
Every parent should have a giant hamster wheel. Get in the wheel! Get in the wheel, Jess!
Burn off some energy. See, when we do that, when my grandbabies are like that, they're not babies, they're from 11, 9, 5 and 2, but I like an obstacle course, that's what I like. And they're like, Grandma, not another obstacle. I'm like, absolutely, you climb that, you jump off that. And he's like, not in the kitchen. Yes, in the kitchen, climb on. Because that's a brilliant way, isn't it? You don't even have to go out, you don't have to get wet. I'm always like, obstacle course forever. And
your house is like an SAS training course.
Honestly, we need to send the kids round to Vanessa.
The other thing I really, really love to do is form a human chain, right? Form a human chain. Okay, we're going to just bring everything down the stairs, hand it, throw it. And then they're not, Grandma, not a human chain. Children, you love this. Come on, obstacle course. Okay, choose obstacle course or and they work. It works. It really makes them laugh.
And what lovely memories they will have as they grow up.
They might not say that. They might say it was really hell. Our grandma was just there making us to form a human chain. But I just think, it burns off the energy. It's funny. And also it gets them to move from wherever they were moaning and getting in a fight and getting fed up to somewhere else.
I'm going to buy you a whistle. Boop, boop.
Yeah, no, I've got a whistle. Do you think I haven't got a whistle? Of course I've got a whistle. All right, let's talk to Julie in Birmingham. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm all right,
Yeah,
thanks. And you think you should raise your girls and your boys exactly the same?
I do. But having said that, right, when I mean exactly the same, you've got to remember that they've got their own individual personalities.
True.
I've raised my kids that way. And it's also to do with that you're singing off the same hymn list if you are a married couple. So even if you don't agree with something that your partner has said, okay, you let the child do what your partner has said and discuss it behind closed doors.
Yes.
That gives the child a clear understanding that we can't mess around with mum and dad.
Absolutely. So you're not good cop, bad cop, and they can't play one off against each other, and you're a united front. But if you disagree with your other half behind the scenes, probably in the bedroom, you can really take them on and say that you didn't like what they did. I don't know, your husband, you say, is a great dad, but do you ever disagree over parenting policies?
Well, yes and no. I think we're largely on the same page.
Yeah.
And we never discuss that kind of things in front of the children at all. And we'll be quite vocal with each other. Like, actually, I didn't like it. I felt like you undermined me there, or please don't do that again, kind of thing. But generally speaking, no. I think we're pretty much on the same page, and the kids know. And quite often my husband will, I might be upstairs, he'll shout up and go, "Is this right?"
To you.
One of them saying that they can have, a bit of television before bed, or they can do this or do that. And I'm like, no, that's not what was agreed. So we do check him like that. And so the kids know that they're not.
Cherry and I,
it must be great being with a parenting expert, because you can be like, what do you think?
Well, one of my daughters is a parenting expert. I get to phone her and say, but as a single parent, because we both had a big spell of that, it's even more difficult, isn't it? Because you haven't got anyone backing you up. I mean, so you want to be both the good cop and the bad cop at the same time. You don't want them to detest you, but you don't want to be a horrible disciplinarian all the time.
I think two things that I learned was once someone said to me, and I thought it was really good, I said, just make your mind up and stick to it when they're really little, so that there's no like, please can I have a crisp, please, because they know that after an hour you're going to break. No is no. I very rarely get angry and raise my voice. So I used to think 3, 2, 1. I never got to 1 because they'd always be like, oh my gosh, she's going to blow.
That's what she means. Yeah.
I very rarely, if ever, and if I do get really cross, because I very rarely do it, everyone goes, oh. But as they've got older, I've realised that it's also really important as a parent to be able to say sorry.
Yeah,
do you know what? Sorry, guys, I got that wrong.
Yeah.
Because I know so many people who really struggle to say that word, and I think as a grown-up, it's a very lovely thing to be in. When you're with someone, they go, "I'm really sorry, I got that wrong."
I'm doing more of that now with my adult daughters.
Right,
sorry for all the things I got wrong.
And
because
I'm sorry
I
hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
And can we that is such a fundamental part of being a good grown-up.
Absolutely. Let's take one more
and a
call
good
from.
role model
Let's
as
go
well.
to Pamela because she's in Dorset and she thinks that boys should be raised differently. Hi, Pamela. In what way do you think it should be different?
I think it absolutely should be different. Boys and girls should be brought up differently simply because that's their gender, and we're gender stealing right now at the moment.
But give me an example, Pamela, because when you say they should be different, I said, yes, they should be different, but how? In what way would you be different with a boy?
Well, a boy should be taught that he should play football, he should go out with the other boys, he should be not afraid, not scared, and girls should be, take care of yourself, look after yourself, make yourself pretty.
And Pamela, what if you just happen to have one of those boys who doesn't like football, isn't good at football, wants to do some reading or paint some watercolours, just isn't keen on that sort of thing, or a boy who quite clearly is afraid? How do you say to your boy, you must not be afraid and you must play football if he's just not that type of a boy?
Send him to a boxing club.
I send him to a boxing club, okay. And if he says, I don't want to go to a boxing club, I just don't want to do it, would you send him anyway, or what would you do?
I think you need to stop apologising for genders.
But I suppose, you have these boys who are athletic and they're fighters, they're explorers, they're sort of, as you might say, more sort of classic, old-fashioned boys. And then there are lots of other boys with all sorts of different personalities and proclivities and interests. And it's a question of whether you try to bundle them in and shove them into the same box with the other boys, or whether you kind of accommodate them because they're your individual child, Pamela.
I've got a daughter who likes hiking and running and all the physical things. I never did. I was a dancer.
Right.
So I don't know where that came from, but you just let it go.
But did you encourage her, or did you try to stop her?
I really wasn't that interested.
You weren't interested, okay. All right, Pamela, thank you very much. I mean, there will be lots of people who share Pamela's view. There will. The boys should do boy-type things and girls should do girl-type things.
Quite sort of 1950s.
You think
take on it, I think,
She would not enjoy parenting. I mean, my son is so bright. He's into science and maths and cooking and pottery. Put him in a boxing ring. Are you kidding me? What? And she would not have liked me. I wanted to chase things and climb up trees and debate subjects, and I think...
But also there, she's saying, her daughter does hiking and all these things that she's saying that boys should be doing, so why not encourage?
But I loved her honesty at the end. She was like, I just don't care. Don't care.
I don't care. But she's a dancer, so maybe she was very taken up with her own passion. I don't know. Thank you so much to Kirsty. Lovely to see you, Kirsty. Thanks for coming and for all your calls.